Now, joining us right now is Major General Havis Al-Shroof, the director of the Palestine Institute for National Security, to discuss the recent Israel-Iran tensions and their impact on regional security. Major General, welcome to our program. First of all, how do you assess Israel's strikes on Iran's air defenses, particularly the S-300 defense system in Isfahan?
Well, I think that Israel's strike to Iran missiles wasn't as expected and as per the Israeli threats. Israel have threatened to strike nuclear sites, yet I think the US has pressured Iran in order to not to widen the scale of the war by not targeting nuclear sites. Hence, this strike wasn't as painful as was expected, and the Iranian reaction shows so. I think Iran will use its proxies in the Middle East to retaliate, and I think that everybody rejects that this leads to a more an all-front war, since it will have consequences in both Iran and Israel.
Okay, and given that, do you think that Israel's strategy of targeting perhaps less critical components of Iran's air defense, and also, as you mentioned, not going for the nuclear facilities, does this seem to indicate an intention to avoid perhaps a larger conflict?
Well, I think this strike, Israel has tried to avoid expanding the escalation, and it tried to target specific military sites and tried also to test the capabilities of Iranian air defense. Israel wanted from this strike to deter Iran, and I don't think Israel has achieved all its objectives from these airstrikes, given what they have announced earlier. Again, regional countries have refused to allow Israeli planes to use its airspace, and I think most of the regional countries reject the escalation, and at the very end, at the end of the day, this airstrike wasn't as expected, and the damage sustained wasn't that big for Iran. I don't think Iran will retaliate directly to Israel, because I think this would be this might lead to more confrontations, taking in consideration that the damages sustained by both parties is not that huge.
And given that we have conflicts already happening in Lebanon, also the war on Gaza, how might these actions affect the security situation across the Middle East?
Israel has an agenda that they would like to achieve, and they have objectives to achieve during the war in Gaza. Still, they couldn't achieve. And in Lebanon, there is Hezbollah. They have the military power, and they have more control. Hezbollah has a set of targets in Israel. Recently, they have targeted the specific military sites, and Hezbollah didn't target any civilian buildings, but rather targeted military sites within Israel. This shows that Hezbollah has the power and has a set of weapons they can use to target Israel. Israel would like, on the other hand, to achieve a set of objectives for Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they want to draw Hezbollah back to Litani area and the Green area. And Hezbollah, on the other hand, doesn't agree on this. The Lebanese government also do not agree on this. They would like to implement the decree of 2001. And if Israel would like a ceasefire, then Blinken should pay a visit to the area. And the Security Council also have issued a ceasefire resolution. If there is a keen interest by the international society to intervene, they should show so. However, the U.S. is protecting Israel, and Netanyahu is waiting for Trump to come back to the American administration, and he knows very well Trump's stance. Trump policies differ from that of Biden and gives a priority to Israel, and they will become a police state in the Middle East and a superpower in the Middle East. But at the end of the day, Israel, whether Trump is in the American administration or not, both the Palestinian and the Lebanese people will hold their ground, and they will not leave their lands. They will keep continuing fighting the Israeli occupation. This is our policy that is based on resilience, despite the Israeli occupation and despite their destroying our lands in Gaza and in Lebanon.
Okay, it's very interesting what you say about a potential Trump administration vis-à-vis Israel. To respond to this strike by Israel. Do you think there's any chance that Iran might respond itself? And what would that mean for the security across the region and also the impact on the security situation in Palestine?
Iran has its proxies in many Arab countries, and they work with Iran. Iran would like to become a super regional power, and I think using its proxies, they could. These proxies, it's time for everybody to, whether Hamas and other parties, to start thinking in a logical way and to reassess their positions, which requires to stop their losses and the bloodbath in Palestine and to return back to the Arab countries, because Palestine is isolated away from the Arab countries. I think it's time for Hamas to resort to logic and to get back to the Palestinians and to unite them. And perhaps then the regional countries like Egypt, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia could help us in order to work on the political and diplomatic levels in order to get back to the right track and to achieve the Arab as the aspirations of the Arab. And I think a couple of days ago, Putin has declared that he is with the two countries solution. Hence, I think it's about time for the Palestinians to be united once again and to have our Qibla as Quds.
Now, to what extent would you say that the events, well, the situation between Israel and Iran, and of course with Hezbollah in Lebanon, is taking away from what's happening in Gaza? Is this a deliberate play by Israel to mask what was a very unpopular, in many parts of the world, attack and war on Gaza? Is this taking away from the suffering of the Palestinian people right now?
Israel is doing its calculations on different levels and different fronts in Gaza. The situation in Gaza is now weak. Israel now is implementing the general's plan by opening a new front with Iran and Hezbollah. The Israelis are somehow distracting the world and trying to make them look away from the massacres and that's occurring in Gaza and the destruction of infrastructures. Everybody now is talking about the strike, the Israeli strike to Iran. Hence, they are trying to to make us look the other way instead of focusing on the conflict and the genocides that is occurring in Gaza. I think Netanyahu is always doing his own tactics that serve his own interest instead of finding a resolution. He is dragging Israel to more confrontations, and this is not for the benefit of Israel because they are causing a lot of problems in the region.
Now, of course, many countries across the region normalized relations with Israel. How different are things now, and what do the tensions that have arisen, and of course everything that has happened in the last year or more that have changed these situations?
The countries that have normalized the relations with Israel, these are countries with their free wills. However, they haven't really succeeded in reaching their objectives. At the very end, this serves only Israel. We always call the Arab countries to stand by our side and to support the resilience of the Palestinians with a capital, with our capital, Al-Quds. All Arab countries support the presence of a Palestinian state. However, at the end, regardless of all the changes and shifts in positions, this will not lead to success as long as as long as the Palestinians are still carrying arms and fighting for destiny, despite the destruction of the Israelis to their lands. The Palestinians will always sabotage all efforts that aim to kill their dreams. I think all the normalization process will fail by the Palestinians. I would like to thank all the Arab countries who call for the right of Palestinians to get back to their country and to have their own state.
Well, you mentioned the Arab states there. What diplomatic and security measures could Arab states adopt to prevent further escalations between Israel and Iran?
I think the Arab countries now, I think they might call for a rapid meeting, a prompt meeting in order to take decisions and perhaps call for an emergency session at the Security Council in order to find a resolution for the Arab-Israeli conflict. The Arab countries have many cards at hand they could use in order to stop the bloodbath, and the bloodbath in whether in Gaza or in Lebanon. I think the Arab countries do have the leverage to pressure the US and Israel by calling an emergency session at the Security Council and perhaps start a peace process. And they could also call for Israel's withdrawal from all the occupied lands.
Well, some very powerful words and some very interesting points that give us all food for thought. Thank you, Major General Habis Al-Shroof, the Director of the Palestine Institute for National Security, joining us from Ramallah. Thank you very much for your insights.